Have you ever noticed something weird about your plate? Cow, chicken, pig, sheep, fish that eat plankton. Every single thing you've ever eaten eats plants. Now try to remember the last time you saw lion steak on a menu, or wolf, or eagle, or shark. Outside of a soup you probably shouldn't be eating anyway. There's over 1 billion cows alive on Earth right now. 9 billion chickens get slaughtered every single year in the US alone. And yet somehow, across every continent, every culture, every century of human history, we all quietly agreed on the exact same rule without ever discussing it. Eat the plant eaters, leave the hunters alone, and once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Because a wolf and a cow are both just meat, muscle, fat, protein. So why does one show up on nearly every dinner table on the planet, and the other basically never does? The answer is terrifying, and it's been sitting in your biology this whole time. Let's start with the reason that alone almost ends the debate. In 1942, an ecologist named Raymond Lindeman discovered something that would later be called the 10% rule. Every time energy moves up a food chain, about 90% of it just disappears. Burned off as body heat, wasted on movement, lost in digestion, only 10% survives the climb to the next level. So picture a field producing 100 pounds of grass. That grass supports maybe 10 pounds of deer. And that 10 pounds of deer supports about 1 pound of wolf. 1 pound of predator meat costs you 10 pounds of prey. And that 10 pounds of prey already cost 100 pounds of plants. Predators are, by biological design, the single most expensive meat on the planet to produce. Farming lions for food would mean farming an animal whose entire diet is other farmed animals. No civilization in human history has ever had that kind of energy surplus to throw away. The math simply never worked, but cost isn't even the scary part. Here's where it gets dangerous. It's called biomagnification, and it means toxins don't disappear as they move up the food chain. They concentrate. A small fish absorbs a trace of mercury from the water. A bigger fish eats hundreds of those small fish and absorbs all of that mercury at once. A shark eats hundreds of those bigger fish. By the time you reach the top of the food chain, you're eating an animal that has spent its entire life quietly hoarding everyone else's poison. This is exactly why doctors tell pregnant women to avoid shark, swordfish, and king mackerel. Not because the fish is naturally unhealthy, because it sits at the very top of a chain that's been collecting toxins for years. And this isn't theoretical. It nearly wiped an entire species off the map. The pesticide DDT washed into rivers in the mid-1900s. Algae absorbed it, fish absorbed the algae, eagles absorbed the fish. By the 1960s, DDT levels inside American bald eagles were so high, it thinned their eggshells until the eggs collapsed under their own mother's weight. Nesting pairs in the continental US dropped to under 1,000 before DDT was finally banned in 1972. That's what a lifetime at the top of a food chain does to living tissue. And humans learned this lesson the hard way too. Sled dogs across the Arctic have known for generations, through pure instinct, never to touch polar bear liver. Human explorers didn't get that memo. In 1911, members of Douglas Mawson's Antarctic expedition ate husky liver out of sheer desperation. What followed was violent headaches, skin peeling off in sheets, and eventual organ failure. The cause? Hypervitaminosis A, extreme vitamin A poisoning. Predator liver stores such an insane concentration of vitamin A that a single meal can kill a human. Indigenous Arctic communities knew to avoid it centuries before science had a name for why. The animal at the top of the food chain isn't just dangerous to hunt, it's dangerous to eat. Let's say you somehow avoid the poison. You're still left with the meat itself. Prey animals mostly graze calm, slow, low-stress lives. Predators sprint, stalk, and fight for every single meal. That constant stress floods their muscles with cortisol and adrenaline and drains the glycogen that normally makes meat tender. The result? Tougher, gamier meat, often carrying a strong, musky flavor from testosterone-related compounds. Hunters who've actually eaten mountain lion or wolf almost always say the same thing: edible, in a true survival situation. Never something you'd willingly choose, and even that's not the worst part. Predators don't hunt the strongest members of a population. They hunt the sick, the old, and the weak because they're easier to catch. Which means predators are also eating every parasite and pathogen those weaker animals were carrying. trichinosis, a dangerous parasitic infection once common in undercooked bear and wild boar, spread specifically through predator and scavenger meat. Wildlife biologists have long flagged carnivore meat as carrying a dramatically higher parasite load than herbivore meat, for exactly this reason. A predator isn't just eating flesh, it's eating everything that was already wrong with its prey, and then you'd be eating that too. Now, history isn't perfectly clean here. Bear meat has been eaten in parts of Scandinavia, Russia, and North America for centuries, but almost always in small amounts, cooked until essentially sterilized. Lion meat has occasionally appeared in parts of Africa during extreme famine when every safer alternative had already run out. Notice the pattern. In nearly every documented case in human history, predator meat was the last resort, never the first choice. Even today, South Africa runs a legal lion farming industry, but it exists almost entirely to sell lion bones into traditional medicine markets, not meat for dinner tables. Conservation groups have condemned it for years. It remains one of the only serious attempts anywhere on Earth to farm a predator at scale. The fact that it's rare, controversial, and aimed at bones instead of meat only proves how hard the rest of the world avoided this path. At some point, biology and religion landed on the exact same conclusion. The dietary laws in Leviticus explicitly forbid eating birds of prey and clawed carnivores, naming eagles, vultures, and hawks directly. Islamic dietary law draws the same line, prohibiting animals that hunt with fangs or talons. Ancient Israel, the Arabian Peninsula, indigenous hunting traditions across North America, cultures with zero contact with each other, no shared language, no shared religion, all converged on the same invisible boundary. Some anthropologists believe it was never only about safety. Predators were feared, respected, in many cultures, worshipped. You don't eat the animal your chief wears on his headdress. You don't eat the creature guarding the gates of your temple. It's hard to serve dinner out of a god. So the real answer was never just one thing. It's biology, stacking on top of chemistry, stacking on top of culture, all pointing in the exact same direction. Predator meat costs too much energy to produce. It carries too much accumulated poison. It tastes worse, breaks down worse, and carries far more disease. And on top of all of that, we spent thousands of years turning the animals at the top of the food chain into symbols instead of meals. Every ecosystem on Earth runs on the same quiet arithmetic. Energy flows upward, less of it survives the climb at every step. Humans didn't invent the rule that predators don't get eaten. We just kept discovering it over and over in every corner of the world, and we built our plates around it. The wolf was never on the menu. The math decided that a very long time ago. If this blew your mind a little, subscribe, because next time we're covering the one predator humans did eat at scale and what it cost us.